Got a phone call about 3 o'clock today from a buddy of mine who's a writer out in Los Angeles, so it would have been about noon his time. And it was something that I thought was interesting enough to share on the blog. I've mentioned a couple times how it's important to always be writing, always move on and have multiple projects you're working on, coming up with new ideas, and how it's a bad thing that some people concentrate on that one script. They go, oh, if I could only get this, my script, and it's always one script this person's been working on for 15 years, you know, and it's never happened. Well, maybe it's because the story sucks, you know, and it's not marketable. So I've said it's important to always move on to a new idea and always be writing and looking for the next story you want to tell. And my buddy was talking to me today, and he's a screenwriter for a living, and he makes a good living. He's worked with some A-list talent, you know, and some B-list talent. And he's having a hard time getting projects that are his, that are his own intellectual property, ideas that are his and his writing partners, off the ground and getting them into a production cycle. They seem to get stuck in pre-production hell. And he was telling me a story about how, I guess in Los Angeles or in Hollywood, and I'm no expert on this, and I may be regurgitating details that aren't 100% accurate here, so bear with me. There's kind of a code you have to follow that really relates to not wanting to piss people off, because you never know who you're going to end up needing to work with, what producers, what industry people are you're going to need to work with down the line. So it's important not to burn bridges, and there's a certain code you have to follow as far as how you shop projects around. Case in point, he has a project that a specific horror director or a director known for horror movies is interested in. Unfortunately, he has been kind of developing this project with another director who's very active in television, has done some features as well. He would really like to move forward with the horror director. The odds of it getting made would be accomplished much sooner with the horror director. Unfortunately, the TV director is who he's been talking to first about it. And he said a big no-no is to shop the same project to two people. Worst case, they both want it, and then you've burned two bridges because they're pissed you'd offered it to two people at the same time. Obviously, it's a worst-case scenario he was talking about, but those are some of the challenges he runs into, which brings me back to my point why it's important you have multiple projects you're working on and you're always trying to write something new. Because if you only wait on that one project and it gets stuck, say you make your break, an agent likes you, you get a manager, and your project's being shopped all around. Well, what if it gets stuck? What else do you have? You know, you're not getting paychecks yet. Maybe you got an upfront. You know, maybe they wanted to reserve some, I don't know, first call right or whatever on it. You need something else to shop around with. You need something else you can toss out to somebody else, to another studio, some other execs, some other writers. And so it's important you keep doing that, because fortunately for my friend, he's got multiple projects in the pipeline. He's not just waiting on that one project that's between the TV director and the horror director. So one of the other things that he brought up that I thought was interesting was that when you're writing and you're shopping around multiple projects, it's important to kind of have a variation of that project in mind. So he was telling me about, he was sitting in on a pitch meeting with some executives, and he related executives to being the voice of the simple person. Not that they're stupid, but that they think along the lines of the dumbest consumer out there. So questions they bring up sound like they're coming from a moron, but really the executive's trying to think what the moron, which is really what most of America is. I mean, you know, let's be frank here, most people watching TV are not the top tier in education, you know, but the creative people tend to be the smartest people, and so we think along the lines of creative people. Executives are selling stuff to the dumb people, because those are the masses. So he's saying, my friend was telling me how he had a really important twist that comes right at the end of Act 1, and he plants this, basically a question in the setup of the film that gets played out at the turn of Act 1 and kind of blows your mind. Well, the execs were just like, well, why do we do that? I don't like that, I don't like that. What if we do this? And so he always comes in to a pitch with the same project or the same story, but with a couple simplified twists. So when you're creating your stories and you're developing your plot lines and your plot points and how you want to develop and play out your storyline, sometimes think about how you might be able to dumb it down a little bit. And I know that's not a great thing to think about, but if you do get a break, and odds are I'm never going to get to that point. If you're watching this video, hopefully you will, and I'm by no means an expert on this, but if you do get to that point where you're legitimately pitching your project, that way you've got some variables you can bring into the play. If an executive's kind of souring on a certain story aspect or certain plot point, you can play out, you can throw out the simplified variable, that simplified plot point, that simplified plot device, that in the executive's view would appeal more broadly to the common person and the quote-unquote dumb audience. Something else I thought I'd share with you. I talk to my buddy about every 2 weeks or so. The guy's busy, and the 3-hour time difference doesn't make it any easier to chit-chat, but he brings me the closest, actually the only real legitimate voice I have to being an aspiring writer and a professional writer in Hollywood. My other friends are in the industry, but like I've said before, they're either a producer of some sorts or they're in special effects, so they're not dealing with the front-end creativity. They're dealing more with the production side of it, and they're kind of, they're below the fold, or below the line, so to speak. So I thought I'd share this with some people out there, and again hit on my point that you can't just have one screenplay. You've got to have multiple projects that you're developing. You've got to always be looking for that next thing you want to start writing, because if you do get to the point where you're shopping something out there or you're doing a pitch, you're not stuck on one. If they say, well, what else do you have? You've got that second follow-up project. Bam, here you go, check this out. This is an action, this is a drama, this is something else I wrote similar to that. So take it for what you will. Like I said, I'm no expert, but I thought it was an interesting anecdote that was worth sharing. And hopefully you get something out of it, and if not, well, hey, at least I'm trying. So take care and keep writing.